Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stewart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and listening, and we've got quite an interesting show tonight. We got Larry on his phone down there in the big Southland. How are you doing, Larry?
Oh, just trying to stay warm. It's just been unseasonably cool.
Yeah, just before we got on the air, you said something about that Trump tweeted or said something. What was that about?
Yeah, it was very interesting. They were making comments on Fox News that Trump was indicating that he may not join in any of the debates in the presidential election. And they were wondering, what does that mean, And so I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe Trump knows more where this is going than a lot of other people.
Of course, it may be there's not going to be another election, too. With what's going on down there in Virginia. Now, of course, we're coming up on the new year real quick, and I guess they're taking one of those communist Democrats taking their seats. That's right away, right?
Yeah, that's why I understand. The next few days, I guess, or right around the first. I'm not real sure about the Virginia law, but they almost have to be in office for that new governor to be moving laws in that direction.
Yeah. Let me read Psalm 2 again for you folks. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh. The Lord shall have them in derision. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord has said unto me, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings. Be instructed, ye judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear. Rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and ye perish from the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. And blessed are all they that put their trust in him. The reason I'm reading that, folks, is we are watching basically the coming apex of the Psalm 2 war. And what you're watching in Washington is absolutely theater. It's all done by script, and they're playing everybody like a fool. I want to read Mark 3:25. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. Isn't it interesting that what we're watching is in the house? Luke 11:17. But he, knowing their thoughts, said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and a house divided against a house falleth. Isn't that interesting, Larry? That's what we're watching.
Absolutely prophetic, and, basically we're there.
Yeah, we're at the end, folks. The matrix is beginning to get shut down. It's a process that the Lord goes through to shut it down. Mankind's probation has basically come to an end, and what we're watching is, of course, the standard communist playbook, divide a nation, rules for radicals. Talks about the selection, actually, of somebody like Donald Trump to divide a nation. And that's exactly what we're watching in Washington. Now, here's something that's interesting that maybe you've thought of, maybe you haven't. Number 13 in Scripture is actually the number of rebellion. This is very, very interesting. Friday the 13th, which is today, is 13 days away from the Ring of Fire solar eclipse, which occurs on December 26th, 2019. The impeachment vote that came out of the committee, of course, you have to refine it, but they have approved those two deals to impeach him with, came out of the committee on the 13th. Now, you may remember that Nadler, they were supposed to do it last night, and Nadler suddenly announced they were going to wait until the next day, which is today, the 13th. That wasn't by accident. Now, here's another thing that's interesting. The vote is 17 Republicans to 23 Democrats, or communists. 1 plus 7 plus 2 plus 3 adds up to 13. So you got all these 13s, all pointing to rebellion. And I think that's kind of interesting. And then I have to be corrected here on, I've been calling this a coup. And I got this article sent to me. Lately, it's been convenient and self-serving to some to call what is going on with the Trump administration a coup. It's a soft coup, a silent coup, or I wish it were a coup. But let's take a look at what that means. According to all definitions I can find, a coup is a sudden, often violent overthrow of a government. So every time I look up the definition of a coup, I get something like this from Merriam-Webster: a sudden, decisive exercise of force in politics. But there is nothing sudden about this. Have you ever thought, what would a modern civil war look like? Tanks rolling down the streets of Washington, D.C., missile targeting Congress, armed forces storming the White House or Capitol building? None of these would accomplish anything. So then he goes into a description of what would a civil war look like, and we are apparently very, very close to that, a civil war. And we're going to get into what's going on in Virginia, and Larry's been watching that, and there are a number of articles now that have surfaced about this communist governor, and that's my opinion. He's a rank, hardcore communist, and he's operating on behalf of the United Nations. The State Department document 7277, Agenda 21 3050. Get the guns. We'll get into that. Larry, you mentioned that Barry Rothman's got several new codes up, and one of them, he says, the role of militias in any future American civil war. Now, who would have ever believed we have gotten to this point where you even have Bible codes that are talking all about it?
Well, Stewart, we wouldn't believe it. We wouldn't even expect to go there. We're in uncharted waters for America. America's never been where we are now, and that's what's shocking. And that's why it's also shocking that Barry Rothman is rolling out Torah codes on militias backing Trump in a new civil war.
Yeah, have you got that in front of you at all?
I've got the first one. Now, he's done 3 matrices. You have to just scroll down 1, 2, and 3. I can give you the first one if you want it.
Sure. Let's go through it.
Yeah, the first one is, and Barry Rothman did this 12-12. which was kind of your dates. It's odd that he did it on 12/12, but basically the matrix has 16 terms in it, and here's what they are. Number 1, militia. Number 2, Omar. Number 3, hunter, which is a name. Number 4, war. Number 5, Philistine. Number 6, enemy. Number 7, Barak H. Number 8, shift. Number 9, obstructor. Number 10, civil. Number 11, Nazi. Number 12, America. Number 13, hunter in the Hebrew. Number 14, black. Number 15, impeachment. And number 16, Michelle. So the Obamas and Barack and Michelle Obama, including a lot of the Democratic leadership, they're all, and Omar, Tlaib, all of those, they're all showing up in these Torah codes of where we are.
This would indicate that probably, we've got Soros, of course, behind all of it, or a good share of it. And then you probably got, how many Christians have been told that Barack is coming back? The only thing we don't know is how is that ever going to happen? How would it happen? And the other question, of course, we have is the Lord's hand still on Trump? If it is, no matter what they do, it's not going to work.
I was thinking, Stewart, get your opinion on this real quick. And because the fact that they were talking today, some of the constitutional lawyers on Fox Business were talking, and they said what has happened now actually means that any future Democratic president that's elected to office can suddenly be impeached without reason at all. And, I got to begin to thinking about that, and I'm thinking, well, the Democrats and even some Republicans, maybe even Trump's acting like there's not going to be a next election. And I'm thinking the only way to get around them being able to impeach a Democrat in office immediately is to actually put one in office as a ruler, not the elected president, but as a ruler, so that the Republicans can't impeach him.
Yep, you could do that. What they've done, folks, is they're using the Constitution and the rules of the House, and they're using it to actually destroy the Constitution and thereby bring in. You always want to go back to what the goal is, and the goal is a deep state communist government here in the United States. And I don't know if any of you have ever seen a copy of the New States Constitution. I think you can probably still get, maybe type in Google New States Constitution. I haven't tried it of late, so I don't know if it's still there, and read it. And it's so grand, all the rights it grants everybody. But in every right it says, in a state of emergency, all these rights can be suspended. You don't have any rights, because all they got to do is say, well, we're kind of in a state of emergency, and therefore all your rights have been suspended. You got to remember also on the protocols of the elders, which everybody says is a fake, even though it's being accomplished bit by bit. Everybody says it's fake. Well, if something is fake, like the report from Iron Mountain, why is everything in it being implemented? That's how you prove it's not a fake. Well, the protocols was part of this, and they said that they were going to create a schism, or whatever you want to call it, between the people and the government. And it would be created to the point where the people would actually get involved in an active revolution. When they did that, they would then bring in martial law, and they would clamp down on the people and tell them, well, we've got this emergency now, but we'll give you all your rights back as soon as the emergency is over. And in the protocols themselves, they say, we're never going to give those rights back. That's just garbage. to feed to the evidently naive or whatever gullible American masses that don't seem to have a clue about anything that's going on anyway. In fact, I saw something, I think it was on TV, one of the pundits out there said that people don't seem to be caring one way or the other about this. They're not interested in it. What do you think of that, Larry? I mean, that's dangerous.
Well, it is, but I keep, as you were talking, trying to bring up some reasonable terms to link to the American people's attitude of listening and understanding. I keep thinking back on the Barry Rothman's stupidity virus. I can't get past stupid.
Yeah, it's too bad to have to say that, but it does make you wonder what's going on. Now, on this, armed militias taking Trump's Civil War tweets seriously, here's one of his tweets. If the Democrats are successful in removing the president from office, which they will never be, he says, it will cause a civil war-like fracture in the nation from which our country will never heal. That's kind of interesting statement, actually. And now we're seeing what's going on in Virginia. Let's scroll down there, Larry. Let's take a look at some of this. This is deadly serious stuff, folks. Well, here's another one from Barry. Will General Milley, chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, declare martial law in a new civil war? And here are the words: martial law, General, Milley, Trump, and surprisingly, Kim shows up. What do you think of that, Larry?
Well, I think that's you can't make this stuff up. I mean, a lot of people don't believe in the Torah codes, but isn't it interesting that embedded in the Torah, as it was written originally, and has never been changed, isn't it interesting that General Milley's there with Trump, and so a General Milley who just was sworn, actually sworn into his new job as Joint Chiefs, isn't it interesting that the Torah code says that at a time that happens, that he's in that position, there's a Trump administration, and all the other things begin to click. And by the way, there's a new, I don't have the story in front of me, but there's a new defector from North Korea who is trying to warn Trump right now, according to information, that Kim has a plan and is about to actually betray all the trust they put in him. And so this could be why Kim's in that matrix.
Well, remember the dream where they said that North Korea launched 2 missiles and took out 2 American cities? I don't know if that's Hawaii or whether that's mainland. How long ago was that? That wasn't that long ago. That was last summer, I think, that several people had that vision of Kim doing that. So maybe that's why he's in the Matrix.
Well, not only that,
go ahead.
Yeah, also, I believe it's Mark Goodwin and Bobby Ackert, which are 2 extreme writers. They're like Tom Clancy, have recently penned a couple of books that actually showed Kim or North Korea firing missiles that struck the west coast of the U.S. in an EMP attack, and they weren't even sure who hit us.
Yes. Yep. Okay. The governor of Virginia has allegedly, now, folks, you got to listen to this, because what they're doing in Virginia is exactly what the United Nations wants to do. This is why this is so important. And remember, this started just a couple days ago. This is all being scripted to get the people to revolt. Because if they can get the people to revolt, then they can come in with their martial law, which has been the plan all along. And I think it's going to be a great deception. Anyway, the governor of Virginia has allegedly ordered a small cadre of staffers to begin the process for determining how to cut off electricity, telephones, faxes, cellular phones, and data, as well as the internet, in areas where he plans to send Virginia National Guard troops to forcibly seize guns when the Democratic legislature convenes in January. Now, they want this to go black. Remember the fires out in California where they did essentially the same thing and took out even shortwave radio? That's so you can't communicate. That's so you don't know what's going on with your neighbor. So if those people in Virginia happen to be listening, if you go black, then this is probably what's coming down. And then it goes down further. You got to listen to this. This is amazing. This is SB 16. Assault firearms and certain firearm magazines, prohibiting sale, transport, etc., and the penalties. Expands the definition of assault firearm, well, any firearm's an assault firearm, and prohibits any person from importing, selling, transferring, manufacturing, purchasing, possessing, or transporting an assault firearm. In other words, you can't even take it out of your house. Well, you can't have it, actually. I'm going to go down here below where it's a little bit. Senate Bill number 64. A person is guilty of unlawful paramilitary activity. Think about the militia, folks. Punishable as a Class 5 felony. Now, here's the deal behind this. If you're a felon, the feds come and take your guns. So this is a backdoor. It's kind of like these Code Red laws, where red flag laws, where if you say something that they don't happen to like, they can come to get your weapons. So anyway, teachers, number one, teaches or demonstrates to any other person, get this, the use, application, or making of any firearm, explosive, incendiary device, or technique capable of causing injury or death to persons, knowing or having reason to know, or intending that such training will be employed for use in or in the furtherance of civil disorder. This is the arrogance of the left, the communist left. It's total arrogance, it's total haughtiness, and I don't know why the American people are bowing down and kissing their big feet. I just can't imagine why we're bowing down to any of this stuff. I've often wondered about TSA. You can grope a woman, do cavity searches of a woman at TSA at an airport, and they get away with it, and the American people are putting up with this kind of stuff. There's something really gone wrong with the American people. They can stop TSA tomorrow morning. Everybody quits flying. Within a week, TSA would be gone because it's always the bottom line, and the bottom line is always dollars. Number two, getting back to this thing, assembles with one or more persons for the purpose of training with, practicing with, or being instructed in the use of any firearm, explosive, incendiary device, or technique capable of causing injury of death to persons, including to employ such training for use in or in furtherance of a civil disorder, assemblies with one or more persons with the intent of intimidating any person or group of persons by drilling or parading or marching with any firearm, any explosive or incendiary device, or any components or combination thereof. What do you think of that, Larry?
Well, I think basically they're saying that a father can't even take his two sons out and teach them how to shoot.
Exactly. This is pure communism. The American people bow down to this jerk governor, this communist governor. They deserve what they're going to get in Virginia. They deserve what they're going to get in Virginia. So what we're looking at here, I think they're designing this in such a way that the people in Virginia, and by the way, the sheriff departments, I think in a number of their counties, there's only like 3 or 4, maybe 5 counties that haven't gone with this, where the sheriffs are making gun sanctuary counties. So the governor says, we don't care. We'll just send in the National Guard. Well, who makes up the National Guard, Larry? It's the people of Virginia.
Citizens.
So who's going, are these citizens going to go door to door to disarm their friends and neighbors?
Well, what's interesting too, Stewart, dovetail in some source information from Dave Hodges about the UN as a covering force using the Chinese.
Yes. Yep. If they can't get this to work that way, they'll invade. America has to come down, folks. And the Lord said in Jeremiah and Isaiah and in Revelation, America has to come down. The only question we have is when. And we know basically how. Jeremiah talks about the roundup, basically, of people. They rounded them up and wouldn't let them go. So that's your FEMA camp roundup. And it's not deep state that's being rounded up. It's God's own people that are being rounded up. And I'm very, very suspicious of all of this. But this is one way to get all of this done, is to bring in people like this communist governor who's actually committing treason at this point. This is treason. And what we're watching in Washington is treason. Nobody dares call it that, but that's what it is. This is an overthrow. I've been calling it a coup, but evidently it's not. Basically it's an overthrow. It's a slow overthrow. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what's really interesting, the only one I've heard call this treason is Trump, and they went crazy when he used the word treason. And this is what's so interesting is Trump is dropping hints all along for kind of where this is going.
Oh, yeah, he's telling them. In fact, in one of his rallies, he called them communists.
And what's interesting, too, Stewart, not only that, Trump has told the American people to their face, he said, they're not coming after me. He said, they're coming after you.
Yeah. Yep. He's been telling the American people, those that are smart enough evidently to figure it out, what is coming. And he has been very, very, how do I say, careful how he words it in some ways and not too careful in others. And nobody's paying any attention to it. I don't think they believe it. I remember when I came out with Iron Mountain, everybody laughed, ha, 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 ha. Could never happen in America. Well, folks, it's already happened. Iron Mountain Blueprint Fraternities up on Angel Fall 923. Watch it. It's already happened. They're in control. And so when people say not going to happen here or whatever, they're just blind and they don't want to admit what's going on when their families are rounded up, and they will be. We know what the Georgia Guidestone says for depopulation of the United States and the world. We know from Deagle.com the hundreds of thousands of Americans they intend to kill. It's real. But it appears to be surreal in that sense of the word. What else you got, Larry? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to mention, and I can't remember your interview with Red Elk if it was in that, but I know in the Great Vision it was that Red Elk gave, and I believe he talked to you about it too. Remember how he said something happens and there's so many dead bodies that they have to start hauling them in railroad cars out to the Dakotas and dumping them in Auroras. There's so many dead bodies.
Yep, I do remember that. And he said they came from the East Coast. And as we were sitting talking about it, I said, well, what do you think that meant? I mean, he was wondering if it wasn't biological warfare, that they had released some sort of a flu bug or something of that nature, biological or chemical attack, that killed off all these people in railroad car after railroad car. I mean, literally hundreds of thousands of dead bodies. And horrible stuff. But, folks, this is what happens when you don't stop evil. If you don't stop the evil when it starts to rear its head, it'll take over, and that's where we are. Washington's nothing but evil now. It's amazing Trump has survived as long as he has when it comes right down to it. And I'm not so sure he's going to survive much longer. Because if this doesn't work, and the object is to incense the American people to the point where they will revolt, and they want a regime change here in Washington. Remember, we're very good at regime changes, and remember, it's the CIA that does all of those. What makes people think that a regime change in America can't occur? It can occur, and it will occur, according to everything I can get my hands on. You said you got a Bible code from Glaserson, too, so let's get into that before we get too far.
Yeah, this is really interesting, Stewart. This is one that Glaserson had just done, and he says, who is Donald Trump? Cyrus, ? And he ran a code, a new code, and it's really got some really interesting words in it. It's got Cyrus in it twice. But anyway, let me read it. And as a matter of fact, this is what's interesting, Stewart. He just did it, and it's got 13 words in the matrix, or 13 word or phrases in the matrix. And I thought, we're running up on a lot of 13s, and here we are on Friday the 13th. We're given this 13 matrix, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is Rabbi Glaserson now, who's pretty quiet. He doesn't put out a lot of stuff, you know. But anyway, it's 13 of them. I'll read it here. Really interesting. He's got number 1, Cyrus, and out beside it he's got written in President Trump. And then he's got number 2, mission. Number 3, Messiah. Number 4, son of Joseph. Number 5, ingathering exiles. Number 6, connection. Number 7, awakening. Number 8, judgment. Number 9, voice of the turtle dove. Number 10, pupil of Villa Goan. Number 11, redemption. Number 12, will save. Number 13, Cyrus.
Wow. Well, that's all about Israel. So let's take that at face value, that it's true, it's in there. Of course, how you interpret these things is probably open to debate, but that would indicate to me that Donald is going to work.
Hey, Stewart.
Yes.
Yeah, somebody's scrambling you. Would you start over when you said, let's interpret this? You got scrambled real bad.
Oh. Well, when you interpret this as Cyrus, and I'm just going to kind of go back over it a little bit, Cyrus was a benevolent ruler, and that would indicate to me that the Lord is not done yet with Donald Trump. He's got some more stuff to do for Israel. You remember that Trump asked the rabbis over there, is it time to build the temple yet?
Yeah.
Now, you have to remember, folks, that what's going on in Israel is a deception. It's I hate to use the word delusion because it's going to appear to be absolutely correct. But you have to remember what Jesus said, another will come in his own name, and him you will accept. So Israel has to accept a fake or false Messiah. You have to remember, their Messiah is a political Messiah. It's not connected the way you and I would think of Messiah. Their Messiah is a political man who puts Israel on the map and backs Israel in their rise to power under the new golden age that's coming. And I believe there's going to be an arrival, and all of this is going to come together. It's a great deception, and Trump is being used by the Lord, obviously. He's got his hand on Cyrus, if you want to call Trump Cyrus. He is a type of Cyrus. There's no question about that. Look at what he's done for Israel. In spite of all the protests and howls of everybody that hates Israel, he's doing it. And this remark, is it time to build the temple, would indicate to me, along with this Bible code, that Trump is going to be around for a little while yet, in spite of all their activities. What do you think? Not necessarily means he's going to be reelected. He may not have to be reelected.
Well, he's opened up, and I was trying to remember a pupil of Vilna Gaon, that prophecy. Do you remember what that prophecy says?
No, I don't.
I've heard of that.
Not at all.
Yeah, I've heard of that, but I can't put it together at the moment. But this is interesting. And Stewart, I was thinking some of the stuff he's done, involving the moving the, matter of fact, saying that Jerusalem is Israel's capital, and also, move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. And get this, he's also given the permission for Israel to actually take control and keep the Golan. Now, you got to remember, Stewart, spiritually, this is really interesting territory, because not only does the Golan have lots of resources and oil and gas, but the Golan, Stewart, is isn't that where Mount Hermon is, where all of those original fallen angels came down?
Exactly. Yep, and they may return there again. We don't know exactly when they arrive, where they're going to arrive at. We did have that tremendous embassy built over there in Iraq, not too far from the old Tower of Babel, so they may have thought possibly that the return will be in that area, and I would think maybe it would be, because that's the Middle East is going to be the hot plate of the world here in a little while. It's already getting that way. Here's another headline. Communist traitors have set the stage for civil war, with the radical left primed for violent uprisings against the rule of law. Every genocide in modern history has started with gun registration, followed by confiscation. So there you go, folks. This is what this is all about. Isn't it interesting that Virginia, the start of the Civil War, has been picked out by the deep state to start another civil war? It's all theater. American people are being scammed, and it's just incredible to watch. Gun Control Hall of Fame, Stalin took guns away from his citizens in 1929, then murdered 20 million of them once defenseless. I've heard the figure is far higher than 20 million. Pol Pot took guns away from his citizens in 1956, murdered 2 million of them once they were defenseless. Hitler took guns away from his citizens in 1938, then murdered 13 million of them once defenseless. Mayo took guns away from his citizens in 1935, murdered 20 million plus of them once they were defenseless. So if the American people are so stupid that they actually give up their firearms, I guess they deserve what they're going to get. The one thing that keeps things obey, and this goes for National Guard people or military people, is if they come up against a heavily armed civilian situation, like we saw in the movie Red Dawn, it's going to be a horrific, awful civil war. I have to say that the Bible doesn't really indicate civil war. It says ruler against ruler, violence in the land. Now, that could be interpreted to mean civil war, but the word violence is very, very interesting. It means unjust gain, like seizures of property and seizures of weapons, I would think, maybe. So this is going to get fascinating. What else you got, Larry, you want to talk about?
Well, I was looking through my notes here. What's interesting, too, we mentioned Israel. I don't know if you saw my blog today particularly, but there's a phenomena rising in Israel. Suddenly there was an old woman, and the Times of Israel actually put this out today. Mm-hmm. There was an old woman went in at the church and began to pray using her little Bible, and she was asked what she was praying for, and she said God had told her to go in and begin prayers for Bibi. Now, when people say Bibi, that's Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, yes, is who they're talking about. Yep. But there's suddenly that's become a phenomena just overnight, and they're having large prayer all across Israel at the present time for Netanyahu, which has just sprung from almost nothing. Now, I know you said that you felt like Netanyahu was the one for the end times of Israel. Yep. And they're really trying to take him out completely. And I did hear that there's supposed to be a 1 million-person march on the Justice Department or the courts in Israel protesting them trying to bring Netanyahu down with charges of bribery and such. Same way they did, their charges of bribery are just like the bribery charges against Trump. It's the same thing. It's Soros.
Yep. And I think, I had that, I don't know how to word this, but it was probably 20, 25 years ago, and I turned on the TV set, and they were interviewing Bibi Netanyahu. And I knew as soon as I saw him, this is the guy that's going to be in the tribulation with Israel, going to have a major role. And as you've known, I had a couple of dreams about Bibi. And I don't ever dream about Israel or war. And in one of the dreams, there was a war going on in Israel. And we were moving Bibi around all over the place. I guess I was part of Mossad or something in the dream, and we were moving him because they were hunting him down to kill him. And we had to keep him on the move, stay ahead of it. And the other dream was not in a war, but he was sick. He was very, very ill at the time. And anyway, I don't want to really get into all that, but it's just very, very interesting that here he is. They've tried to knock him out more than once. And now somebody said there was going to be some sort of a miraculous event that was going to keep Netanyahu in office. Do you remember who said that?
I do remember reading that somewhere, and they said that even if it looks like he's gone, that there's I believe it was Breaking Israel News posted that. But I was thinking, of that actually when it looks like Netanyahu is about done. And matter of fact, they couldn't put the new government together, so now they're going for a third election this year. It'll be in March actually, but it's still within the year that it is now in Israel. And I thought of that. I thought, well, what's the odds a little old lady would, a little Israeli woman would take her Bible and go into a building to begin to pray for Trump, and it just explodes. What's the odds?
Yeah. You meant praying for Bibi. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. But that's the way the Lord works. It's kind of like when Susan Boyle, nobody knew who Susan Boyle was. They'd never even heard of her. And she comes out on British Got Talent, and sings the swan song of the human race. And it was clearly anointed by the Lord himself. And she went from obscurity to a worldwide sensation overnight. That's the hand of the Lord. He has a message for people. Well, most of them are too dumb to realize it's a sign and it's a message to them. Get ready. We're closing down the matrix. And I don't know. It may come as a shock to many of us, the headline says. The current magnetic flip will have dramatic consequences for life on Earth. What's kind of interesting here is we have talked about the resonance of Earth, the Schumann resonance, which is constantly spiking. And you sent me an article about the radiation levels going higher and higher. But here's what it says. A series of unfortunate or fortunate events. High magnetic reversal rate. This is where we're going, folks. Low magnetic field strength. High incoming cosmic radiation causes lower levels of ozone and oxygen. Higher incidence of UVB radiation. Higher rates of DNA damage and mutation. I think Steve Quayle put a little note on one of his little deals that people are losing it, or maybe it was Stan Dale that did that, but people are starting to lose it. And it all has to do with this resonance change, this frequency change. Can magnetic reversals cause mass extinction? In terms of life on Earth and a direct impact of a reversal on our species, we cannot definitely predict what would happen, as modern humans did not exist at the time of the last full reversal. Several studies have tried to link past reversals with mass extinctions, suggesting some reversals and episodes of extended volcanism are driven by a common cause. Now, I want to read something to you. Larry, break in anywhere here, because this is interesting stuff because of the volcanic operations that are going on. This is from the book of Enoch. All shall be afraid, and the watchers will be terrified. That's fallen angels, folks. Great fear and trembling shall seize them, even to the ends of the earth. The lofty mountains shall be troubled, and the exalted hills depressed, melting like a honeycomb in the flame. The earth shall be immerged, and all things which are in it perish, while judgment shall come upon all, even upon all the righteous. But to the righteous he shall give peace. He shall preserve the elect, and towards them exercise clemency. And then, which is very, very interesting to me, is chapter 79 in the book of Enoch. And I'm going to start at verse 3. In the days of sinners, the years shall be shortened. Now, I don't know if that's a reference of going back to a 360-day year. By the way, in the book of Revelation, the tribulation period is based on 360-day years. Now, if that's based, that means we have to slow our rotation down. It has to be speeded up, rather, so that it goes in, let's see, it would probably go around the Earth, so the orbit would be speeded up for some reason. But here's what it says about humanity and about basically mankind for the most part. Their seed shall be backward. Everything done on earth shall be subverted, disappear in its season. Rain shall be restrained. Heaven shall stand still. In those days the fruit of the earth will be late, not flourish in their season. The season of the fruits of the trees shall be withholden. The moon shall change its laws, and not be seen at its proper period. In those days shall heaven be seen, and barrenness shall take place in the borders of the great chariots in the west. That's the United States. And that's Jeremiah says the same thing. But anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. And
well, it is good.
When it comes to the magnetic shift, the ancients tend to confirm that when you have a magnetic pole shift, it goes to zero for a little while, and then it reverses. Now, this is from the book of Jasher, and it's talking about just before the flood occurred. On that day, the Lord caused the whole earth to shake, and the sun darkened, and the foundations of the world raged, and the whole earth was moved violently, and the lightning flashed, and the thunder roared, and all the fountains in the earth were broken up, as such as were not known to the inhabitants before. And God did this mighty act in order to terrify the sons of men, that there might be no more evil upon the earth. Well, of course, that didn't work, did it, Larry? Worse now than it was then.
No, and what's interesting, Stewart, is what you're reading, especially from Book of Enoch, just as chimes in closely with the book of Esdras. Esdras 2, I believe it is. It talks a lot about that. And do you know what Enoch was talking about? We're seeing that today. You know, the late plants, the plants that are not doing right, stuff that's going backwards. I mean, this whole thing is playing out.
Yeah, we're entering in. There's no question about it. I know people don't want to hear that. They're too earthly. They want everything to continue as normal. And when this thing goes down, including the taking of the church, which I believe myself is fairly close at hand, whatever that means. But we are moving so rapidly into this new world order. We are moving so rapidly into a flare-up in the Middle East. It's going to encompass Daniel 8, Isaiah 17, Ezekiel 38, 39. Everything is lining up. All of the players are coming into place. The thing for the mark of the beast is rapidly coming into place. Here's one headline. Bill Gates wants to export India's national ID system around the globe. It's not just a social credit score system spreading around the world from China that threatens the free people. India's national ID program has full support of Bill Gates and the World Bank as a model for other countries to follow. If you get into this thing, and I've been delayed kind of on our book 3 because there's so much news. This thing is rapidly moving with 5G, 6G technology, surveillance system, police state systems, and how they're just secretly and clandestinely bringing all of this in. And I think the stuff in Washington probably has a number of purposes. But a lot of it is all diversionary tactics while they're sneaking in all of this police state stuff. And once it's in, you're done for. You don't have any place to go. You don't have any place to go at all. And the weather is so erratic. And I want to get into this. Larry, you sent me this one. Cosmic ray update. Something ironic is happening in Earth atmosphere. Solar activity is low, very low, yet atmospheric radiation is heading in the opposite direction. Cosmic rays percolating through the air around us are at a 5-year high. Take a look at the data gathered by cosmic ray balloons launched by spaceweather.com. It was at 18%. Well, guess what? Not anymore. 22%. Radiation levels have been increasing nonstop since the monitoring program began, with recent flights registering the highest levels of all. Now, you got to remember, at the same time this is happening, the North Pole is moving the Schumann resonance is increasing, and we're in trouble. What do you think, Larry?
Oh yeah, and the new readings are only a month older than the last ones that were really high. So this is shooting skyward. It's so amazing. And as space weather was indicating, the sun activity at the moment is very, very quiet. Yet everything's changing. Matter of fact, Paul Begley did an interesting report yesterday, I believe it was, Cosmic Pulse Coming Today, Waves of Energy. And he's also got in now to talking about these waves of energy that are striking the Earth. And nobody seems to know where they're coming from, but they're hitting. And, was it Velikovsky that talked about this?
Well, Paul LaViolette recently, and I don't know if Velikovsky did or not, but I know for a fact that LaViolette, and then there was that Bulgarian prophet that said that a cosmic wave of fire was coming, and when it got here, a lot of people were going to vanish. And I relate that to the rapture. Now, the people on earth, according to the Bible prophets, the Antichrist system and people will be saying that, well, the Creator had to get rid of those people because they were just not fit and they couldn't evolve. But the ones left behind were going to be evolving ever upwards. A direct contradiction to the Lord Jesus Christ. So this delusion, folks, the Lord says the strong delusion is totally effectual. It's going to do the work He wants it to do. So this is all fascinating stuff, and it's all coming together at the same time. And this is a deadly part of this thing. It's really, really ramping up. And they're finding all kinds of weird stuff going on in Antarctic and Greenland. They're finding huge underground rivers, and of course that's volcanic activity on the rise. Something's going on in the economy. Massive, huge, largest ever Fed will flood the market with gargantuan $500 billion in liquidity to avoid year-end repo crisis. We're in a lot of trouble economically. I think it's all going to come together. Myself, that's just my take. They're engineering all of this. God's behind it. Remember, the Lord is behind an awful lot of this stuff because of the total rejection of the Lord Jesus Christ. They've rejected Him. They've rejected what He commanded them to do. They won't do it. And there is no repentance in the land. They don't even know what repentance means, on and on. Last word, Larry.
Well, I was just going to tell people to, this is a good time to pray and really make sure your house is in order, because we are in a real time of change. And as I've said before, we're in uncharted waters in America.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're heading into something that almost everybody probably listening would have no experience in, because we've had a relatively normal, we've had our economic up and down and all this, but basically we have had a very normal existence without too many things going on. That's changing, and it's going to change rapidly. And war, for the most part, has been on other people's soil. That's coming here. So anyway, a lot of bad news, but there's always good news. Remember, when you see all these things, know that your redemption draweth nigh. So that's, I guess, where we kind of have to leave it. For those who don't know the Lord, a lot of trouble is coming, and it's just too bad that you can't get people to realize that. But with the apostasy in full swing, you can't basically get anything out of the churches today. Anyway, thanks a lot, everybody, for listening. Take care, and we'll see you whenever there is a major break, otherwise next week. Thank you. Good night. Thank you, Larry.